Meeting player expectations is the greatest challenge any game developer faces. The Somnium Files was announced in 2017 under the name Project Sync, and after 2 years of development, it's finally coming out. It's written and directed by Kotaro Uchikoshi, most known for his work on the Zero Escape series. Don't worry though, if you've never played those games, you can absolutely jump right into this one since they aren't connected. However, I still find it relevant to bring up so you can understand the context of why this game is so important. This isn't an escape room VN hybrid like Zero Escape, but a thrilling sci-fi point-and-click murder mystery with a unique twist that bursts with creativity and passion. What's the twist, you ask? Well, there's a limit to how much information you can gather through traditional means, so you'll have to dive into the world of dreams to solve the game's mysteries. I've been waiting years for this game to come out, and I'll be honest, I was a little worried. More than anything, I wanted this game to live up to my expectations, and I can confidently say that it exceeded them. Uchikoshi was finally given the budget and resources he deserves to truly let his imagination go wild and revolutionize the genre like he attempted to previously with Zero Time Dilemma. After ironically losing plenty of sleep clearing the game in the last week, I'm convinced that this is my favorite Uchikoshi title to date. There's a problem, though. I've seen next to no buzz online about it. September is a busy month for game releases, I get it, but I don't want I to be lost amongst the sea of all these big budget titles. A niche story-driven detective game coming out worldwide with dual audio, full voice acting, great visuals, multiple branching paths, and a variety of gameplay mechanics that all mesh together well, is next to unheard of. Risks like this deserve to be rewarded, and I really don't want to see this underperform. Which is why I'm here, to inform newcomers and worried fans alike, and answer the question, what is the Somnium Files? And why should you care? The story of begins on a cold, rainy November night. A woman's corpse has been found at an abandoned theme park. Her name is Shoko Nadami. She's been stabbed multiple times, strapped to a horse on a merry-go-round, and has had her left eye gouged out. Strangely enough, this seems similar to a series of murders that took place 6 years prior to the game's events. If you've been following my channel from the beginning, you should know this kind of setup is incredibly up my alley. I've been biding my time waiting for 2 years for another great murder mystery game, and finally, Uchikoshi has delivered to me some delicious fucking food. Compliments to the chef, just mwah. Anyway, the serial killer is quickly named the new Cyclops Killer, and that's where you come in. You play as Kaname Date, a special agent in a classified division of the Metropolitan Police Department called Abyss, aka the Advanced Brain Investigation Squad. Date has no memories from earlier than 6 years ago, where he was found wandering the streets without his left eye. He's not on the case by himself though. He's fitted with a state-of-the-art artificial intelligence that serves as a fake left eye, named Aiba, who functions as his partner. She and Date need to work together to follow leads, explore Tokyo, and use Abyss's special sync machine to dive into people's dreams, also known as their somnia. I think one of the biggest draws to is how the game always makes you feel like an active participant in its world. The game is essentially split up into 2 segments, Investigation and Somnium. Date can freely look around every environment in a first-person perspective. This is a great counter to the usual complaint that games like this feel too static, since you're always in control of the camera, with an obvious exception being cutscenes. There's an insane amount of detail put into the environments in terms of both visual design and flavor text that comes from investigating various objects. You'd be surprised just how much optional character building happens between Date and Aiba from just hearing their internal banter by examining random objects. They make an amazing pair, and I don't know if I would have liked them half as much if there wasn't this much freedom. Aiba's inclusion is a net positive from both a narrative and gameplay perspective. Her intelligence and ability to hack internet databases cuts out the middleman, which helps the pacing a lot. Not to mention, she's able to zoom in on crime scenes and give Date access to thermal and x-ray vision. This interweaving of gameplay, presentation, and story surpasses Uchikoshi's previous works. Text boxes have made their triumphant return since they were removed in Zero Time Dilemma, which is a huge improvement in my opinion. You can talk to who you want to, ask what you want, and all at your own pace. It also mixes up the gameplay during these segments a bit by throwing in an occasional QTE action scene, and there are also these cool moments you get when you get to present evidence you've gathered to contradict a suspect's testimony, a la Ace Attorney. The visuals have received a significant upgrade from ZTD as well, and I think this is largely due to the influence of the new character designer, Yusuke Kozaki. You might recognize his work from two little series. I don't know if you've heard of them, they weren't too popular, they were just called, No More Heroes and Fire Emblem. His art has always made the transition into 3D really well, and I is no exception. The higher budget also means all animations look a lot more realistic. They still don't look AAA by any means, but it's a huge improvement. It's nice little touches like this that really make a difference, and created an unparalleled sense of atmosphere that kept me invested the entire time. Also, you might not know this, but the PhD in my username is totally real, and it's in game UI. Shocker, I know. I'm happy to diagnose the UI in this game as Lit AF. Don't believe me? Well, look at the goddamn options screen and then go sit in your corner and think about what you've done. The game's tone is also worth commending. It's rare for a super dark murder mystery to successfully pull off a comedic tone, especially when the writer has an adoration of puns that would put even Teddy to shame. There's an intentional silliness to some of the dialogue that worked way better than it had any right to be. I really feels like the culmination of Uchikoshi's experience as a writer, creating a great balance of comedy and drama. The comedy always hit for me, and the game can be downright hilarious when it wants to be. The humor from the characters only adds to the stakes of the story, making you actually care when horrible things happen to the cast because you've grown so fond of them. The duality of Ai's tone is pulled off so well, and it's pretty much incomparable to any game I've ever played. And this energy carries over to the Somnium sections as well. This is where the meat of the gameplay is, and where Uchikoshi's creativity shines the most. These are essentially if the puzzle rooms in Zero Escape were actually timed, involved third-person exploration, had full voice acting, and followed dream logic. When Date sinks into someone's somnium, a human manifestation of Aiba appears to navigate the trippy dream worlds. The goal of these sections is to control Aiba to interact with the somnium worlds to remove the person's mental locks, and uncover the information they're keeping secret. Every somnium is unique, and is a reflection of the character's psyche. You have to really think outside of the box to solve these, all while working around the 6-minute time limit. Don't worry though, time only advances when Aiba moves or interacts with the environment. This helps you gather your thoughts and plan out how you want to proceed. The time limit fixes a nitpick I've always had with the Zero Escape games, where the characters would panic that they have to rush to solve a puzzle room in X amount of time, but in reality no such limit was put on the player. It was a super minor thing, but this change really helps us feel just as tense as the main characters. You could argue that many of the solutions to unlocking the mental locks rely on trial and error, but I would disagree with that, since the entire point of these sections is that these puzzles don't adhere to traditional logic. You can retry from a previous checkpoint if you've made too many mistakes or wasted too much time, and you can even reset the sync if need be. There's a surprising amount of ways you can interact with the objects in these dreams, all giving you unique events or funny conversations between Aiba and Date. My absolute favorite thing about Somnium sections, though, has to do with the fact that they're responsible for how the story branches. Many of them actually have two different ways to unlock a subject's mental locks, and how you go about that can lead Date to a different conclusion. The choices you make in Somnium sections will affect what ending you get, but there's more to it than you think. New players will be happy to know that they don't have to restart the game every time they want to make a different series of choices. Uchikoshi's staple flowchart returns, allowing you to jump back to any previous moment you've witnessed. And hey, this time it's got some choice aesthetic to it as well by having it show up on a corkboard. Ah, murder mystery with a flowchart. Wait, hold on a second. Chaos Child doesn't even have one of those. Could this be the murder mystery game to usurp Chaos Child's throne in my heart of hearts? Who really knows? But regardless, you're gonna need this flowchart because this isn't the kind of game where you reach an ending and you're just done. The goal is to play all of the routes and gather all the information necessary to reach the true ending. The narrative is actually designed around this, and it works wonders for a murder mystery story. Somnium sections are overflowing with creativity, but like with everything else in Ai, only works so well because of strong visual and audio design. I have to give props to the game's audio design specifically though. Keisuke Ito is the composer this time around, and I'll admit that before I'd never heard of him. He's notable for scoring the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, Yakuza 3, and Bloodstained. From that list alone, you can tell how talented he is, but he's never really worked on a game like this before, which is why I can say with confidence that he completely blew me away with his score. There's so much energy, emotion, and variety in Ai's soundtrack, which is impressive when you consider that there are over 39 tracks. He really nailed the neo-noir style the game was going for, and I really think the soundtrack of Ai surpasses those found in Uchikoshi's older works. Mr. Ito, my respect for you is undying. You know what else I have undying respect for? Dialogue-heavy games with dual audio, where both voice tracks end up being incredible. Huge props to the localization team. The translation and English dub for Ai are simply amazing. I'm not trying to gush about every single thing Ai does well, but it really deserves credit for having possibly one of the best dubs I've ever heard. I played the entire game with the English voice track, and I'm gonna recommend you do the same. The Japanese audio is really nice, but this joins Xenoblade Chronicles and Dragon Quest XI in the video game English Voice Acting Hall of Fame. There wasn't a single weak link in the performances, which is even more impressive since a majority of the cast are lesser known voice actors. You still have bigger names like Greg Chun and Erica Harlacher who do a phenomenal job bringing Date and Aiba to life, but I also have to commend Jackie Lastra, Zach Aguilar, and Karina Boetger for their roles as Aset, Ota, and Mizuki respectively. I could sit here for hours gushing about how impressed I was with the English voice work, but I'll spare you that and just say this. The localization team worked their asses off to ensure that a game with a script as big as this was all voice acted flawlessly. The voice direction is just one of the many reasons that the plot is able to deliver such raw levels of emotion. Date, for example, ended up becoming one of my favorite protagonists that Uchikoshi has ever written. What sells him is the game's writing, his voice acting, and his dynamic with Aiba. The cast is full of flawed characters, and Uchikoshi really brought his A-game in somehow making them likable and believable. His writing has dramatically improved since his last big release. It's impressive how he messes with our expectations of his tropes in this game to deliver a surprisingly fresh experience. The plot twists never feel cheap, because everything is based on the rules established from the beginning. Another improvement to the plot comes from the change in setting. After finishing it, I definitely feel like Uchi is much better suited to writing this kind of game, as it means he gets to flesh out his cast much more than before. He definitely didn't lose his edge, trust me, it earns that Zero Z, but the way he tackles certain issues like mental health, abuse, and trauma are respectful, while still adding to the overall drama. I'm not ashamed to admit that the game brought me to tears quite a few times. I'm pretty sure the total was 5, one of which was at my college campus, but hey, who's counting? What I mean to say with all this is that Uchikoshi has learned from his mistakes and polished his formula to near perfection. I was worried, scared even, to cover this game. I didn't want to give people false hope and hype them up to an unreasonable level only to lead them to disappointment. I specifically went into this game with cautious optimism in order to judge it fairly, but I can't help but sit here days after finishing it and continue to find more reasons to fall in love with it. It's a tightly woven plot that has only improved in my eyes the longer I've sat on it. Here's the thing about expectations though. They're subjective. There might be aspects of this game that I loved that you might not. It's impossible to tell if popular consensus will differ from the opinions I gathered while playing it in my own little bubble. What I do know though, is that I have absolutely no reservations in my adoration for this game. The kanji for I in Japanese means love, and aside from adding to the complex layers of punnery on display in the game's title, I feel like it's a perfect representation of how much passion I can tell was put in developing this game. I respect that hard work and firmly believe that it paid off. I've never done this on my channel before, but I think it's safe to award I the Somnium Files with my first ever GOTY. There have been a lot of amazing titles this year, but none of them have matched the creativity, originality, and risk-taking of this game. It kind of feels like almost every notable release of 2019 has been a sequel, port, remake, or remaster. It doesn't mean that those games are bad or uninspired necessarily, but I've spent the entire year craving something fresh. I might not be the most perfect video game to come out this year. Like any game, it has its issues, but it's certainly the one that checked all my boxes and affected me the most so far. I the Somnium Files is not a game you should pass on. It absolutely deserves your attention. please consider picking it up when it comes out this month so we can prove that the risks taken were worth it. Hey guys, couple things real quick before I end the video. First things first, thank you so much to Spike Chunsoft for giving me the opportunity to cover this game. It feels like a dream come true. Haha, I'm gonna move on now. One last thing, in case you aren't aware, I actually just recently got a job writing for RPG Site. I actually am planning to write an in-depth review for Somnium Files in the near future over there, so definitely keep your eyes out. Thank you so much for watching, and you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye bye!